Been fantastic. Fantastic. How are you doing, Martin?
I'm doing great, man. Especially since we're doing this recreational rejection, having fun with no.
Have you
So,
interesting?
David, I'm kind of interested for. I know we have a lot of people here. Or welcome to all the people that we have here: Pam, Layla, Eric, Ruth, um, Zainab, and the guest. Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. Um, David, I'm interested. Can you talk about who you are, what you do, for the people here that don't know who you are and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my name is David Park. I'm a former Army Ranger, and now I'm a board certificate. And some of you from strategic intervention know me, and so you're my clients. But anyway, so with me, my big thing was fear. When I became a coach, I really looked at why was I afraid of rejection? Why was I afraid of rejection in my relationships? Why was I afraid of rejection in my business? Why couldn't I call, ask for speaking gigs, things like that? And when I really thought about it, and I thought about combat, because I spent 8 years in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And, even though I felt fear then, it didn't keep me from doing what needed to be done. The fear was there, but in the background. And then when it came to my business or other areas of my life, maybe the fear was right there in the forefront and it seemed looming when there really wasn't anything at risk, especially compared to combat. So that's pretty much my background. And what about you, Martin?
Just to get a question out there, can y'all hear David fine? Because I'm having a little trouble hearing him. But if y'all could hear him fine, that's
Can you guys hear me? Anybody on chat?
maybe just type at the on the little. Okay, cool. They can hear you fine. So I guess it's just me. Great. So I consider myself an agent of change. Kind of like a secret agent, but in the context of helping people. I'm a little low. Let me let's see. My mic here. Does that make a difference? So what I do is I help people create deep and lasting changes in their lives. Um, and how about now? I'm just speaking into the. So I'll just go like that. Can you guys hear me though or no?
It's better
Okay,
when you
great.
hold it.
So what
Yes.
I do is I set up contexts with people where we talk, they cry, they feel anger, they feel emotions, and after like an emotional type of conversation, after that they usually look back and they're like, "Wow, in that conversation I had with that dude, I changed." Right? And what I do is I teach people strategies, right, of how to run their thinking, how to run, how they see the world, how to update how they feel about things, and how to develop new choices in their lives. So I've been actually doing this rejection, um, this experiments with rejection for a bit, and David and I decided to kind of get together and because we know, I mean, I've dealt with the fear, and we know a lot of people have this fear, and the goal of this is to actually provide you with strategies like of how to actually get over it and what to do and like specifically, right? So this recreational rejection, this whole idea, um, I've been doing something called rejection therapy for a couple months, and what that is the idea of I have a task, and the task is every day do something to get rejected. That's it. But I've utilized the idea from rejection therapy, and I've utilized ideas from Albert Ellis's system and my own background to create a system where um, I'm exposed to the stimuli of rejection, and through that, I've learned a whole bunch of things, right? Um, so let me give you an example of what I mean. Imagine that you're walking, or I'm walking, to a movie theater, and as I'm walking to the movie theater, I'm gonna go watch the Batman movie, which I heard is pretty good. You know, I'm excited about it. But also in the back of my mind, I have the idea, you know what? I'm doing this rejection therapy thing. I'm dealing with the rejection thing. What's up, Jeff? Thanks for being here, man. And so I see this woman walking up to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this rejection therapy. So I'm like, I'm gonna go walk up to her, and I walk up to her. She has this box of popcorn, David. She has this box of popcorn in her hand, and I'm like, excuse me, ma'am. And it's like time slows down for a little while. Things become quiet. And I have some of your popcorn. I'm kind of hungry. Now, I'm wondering when you think about that, when you consider doing that, what happens for you? At least for me, I had the idea that she was probably going to say something funny to me or kind of look at me weird. But as I waited, yeah, yeah, that's right, Ruth. But as I waited for a little while, I looked at her and she started smiling like a burst out smile. And I was like, cool. And she's like, sure. Here's some popcorn. Here. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. That's actually a lot different than what I expected was going to happen in this scenario, right? And this is part of the beauty of this, right? It I it's kind of a surprise, right? Like if you were to think about when maybe in Christmas, right? And this is how I link it. This is a little metaphor I use. Did I freeze? Can you hear me? Can you
Can you
hear
hear
me,
me?
David?
Okay, so it looks like we lost Martin for a second, so I'm going to go ahead and pick. So really, when we're talking about you know, the brain cannot tell the difference between physical pain and pain. Okay. Yeah, you're back. Okay, so sorry guys, Spreecast is a little buggy at times, but so brain can't tell the difference between physical pain and emotional pain. And if we have painful associations with rejection by creating meaning, then we avoid rejection because we're avoiding pain. It's the same thing as avoiding putting our hand on a hot stove because our brain takes it to be the same thing. The centers in the brain actually overlap. So rejection, there are a couple of different things about recreational, and we call it recreational rejection or recreational rejection because it's both. Recreational rejection with the idea that we're going out to get rejected for fun. That's what we're doing for fun. And right now you're thinking that it doesn't sound like fun at all. But when you get to a game, you're completely reframing the experience. Okay? And then also the idea of recreational rejection with the idea that you're recreating your reality. One of the things that you'll find when you go out and you start asking big questions, when you start asking odd questions, it's like Martin will finish his story here in a second. Your reality is going to shift because you're going to find two things. One, getting rejection does not hurt as badly as we project it to, that we project into it. If I ask this and they say no, I'm going to horrible. The way all fear works. Fear always seems, whatever we fear seems like it's a dead end. So one of the exercises I do with my clients is I ask, okay, let's say that thing that you're afraid of happening, in this case, rejection, let's say that just happened. Let's say it happened yesterday. Now what do you do? And then all of a sudden it opens the world back up again. So one, it kind of conditions you to not really care about rejection as much as you once did. And the other thing is it tests your reality because people really aren't going to say no quite as often as they are. And things that I was kind of finishing story when he stopped, but if you said asked her for some of her popcorn and stopped. So when you ask for something and then you maintain your frame, which is sort of your place of power, right? My frame. I'm not gonna laugh it off. Have you guys ever done that? Where you ask for something and you weren't sure the response, just laughed. Oh no. But if you maintain your, what is it? It throws the other person off balance. Like, is this person serious? Is this guy, stranger, really asking me for some of my popcorn? So anyway, Martin, go ahead. Oh yeah, love Chipotle. So it looks like he froze again, didn't he? Okay. So I'm gonna keep on talking then while Martin. Oh, you're back. Go ahead, buddy. She said so. Sure. And you're on your way back to the kitchen. Right. Stone death. So, yeah. So let's break this down on an individual level. I'm sure that what is. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So, is there somebody in your life right now? Is there an area where you don't ask for what you want because it feels too big or it feels impossible? You know, there's that little famous, maybe it was Marianne Williamson or whoever, but Facebook, I'm sure everybody's seen it and whatnot. But you know, what would you attempt if you could not fail? Well, let's reframe that because everybody knows that they can fail at an endeavor. All right, but what would you do if you didn't care if you failed? What would you do if you didn't care if you were rejected? And we're not necessarily talking fear completely being gone. When I was in combat, the fear was never gone. Firefighters, the fear is probably never running into a burning building. We're not talking about the fear being gone. We're talking about you just not caring. Because a lot of times, like Martin was saying, what tends to happen is we don't even know what the results are going to be. Even if we get rejected, we just have this generalized sense of anxiety about the rejection itself, about the idea if I ask for what I want, I'm going to get rejected. But sometimes even that rejection is better than not knowing. But you know, how often what? Go ahead. Oh. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. You know, in terms of again, we you know, we catastrophize a lot, right? And it's not even that if I ask them that I see a picture of them saying no and then spitting on me. It's just the whole general anxiety that builds just thinking about asking for what I want. And really what I'd like to do is make this a little bit personal. If you guys feel comfortable with it, if there were one person or a business that you want to reach out to, or somebody that you want to interview, or you know somebody you want to ask out, or whatever else, um, you know, what is one thing that you could do tomorrow if you were not attached to rejection, if you weren't worried about rejection? And if you want to, put it in the chat box because it'll help us, you know, really kind of address this, because this is leading into a larger coaching project. But if you're not part of that project, we still want you to leave here this evening with something that can change your life. Somebody that was on a call last time who didn't sign up for the program, went out and did it on his own, has got 3 new corporate clients because of it. Because these clients he felt were out of his league, and who am I to approach them? And think about that we don't even give people the opportunity to make their own decision. We make the decision for them, right? We even give people the opportunity to say no. We say no to them. So if you want to put something in here, you can. If not, if you don't want to put in the chat box, that's fine too. But I really want you to think about something right now, something that you could ask for, something that you could go out there. Now, the point of the game is I go out and get rejected. Okay, the point of the game is to go out and get rejected. But at the core of this, what this really is learning how to ask big. You know, learning how to ask, you know, for the bizarre. I was in a car dealership one time and they had a coffee table that I really liked. And I asked them if I could have it. And they're like, well, we need a coffee table. And I said, well, if I'm you another coffee table that works just as well as that one, can I have your coffee table? And they're like, sure. So I did, you know, and so it's this type of, where do you get hung up in your life? What are you asking for? Because you don't even, sometimes it's not even that you think about it and you get worried. You don't even think about asking for it because it feels so far out of reach, right? So again, understand that when you think of asking what you want, be very clear about what you want, and ask for it. Don't lose your frame after you ask when a person looks at you like you're out of your mind, right? Don't lose your frame. It's like Martin said, I stood there, I waited. I went to a bakery last week and the woman was, or 2 weeks ago, and you know, it was this long line and I was getting a coffee and one of the women behind the counter was spreading chocolate on their cupcakes. And it just looked good to me. I'm trying to avoid sugar, but it looked good. So I asked her I told her I wanted to lick the knife. And she looked at me, she's like, really? And she's looking at me, the line's looking at me. And I didn't go, oh yeah, you know, I just like the knife. And she goes, okay. So she got a plastic knife. She put a huge dollop of chocolate frosting and she handed it to me. You know, now people in line are looking at me like I'm insane, but I got a knife full of chocolate frosting there. So you know, it's these questions of where are you saying no to yourself before anybody, right? How is that holding you back in your life? And as Martin said, in your relationships, you know, I mean, even married. I mean, it's interesting because you talk to married people, and Martin and I both do a lot of relationship coaching, just Jeff, and sometimes it gets kind of strange because people have been together for 5, 10, 15 years, and they're just now talking about their sexual preferences and their fantasies and what they would like. And they were always afraid to ask for it because they thought, oh, they're going to think I'm weird. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And so once they learn how to just ask for what they want, look, if they say no, they say no. But at least I've asked. At least it's out there. And like Martin said, once you form that baseline no, then that gives you information to move from this. You know, the idea is we're all living in a fantasy world. Everybody on this earth is a fantasy world, right? There's the objective reality. There's what's actually happening out there. And then there's this inside your head, the second order reality. And the real question is your fantasy world beneficial? Is your fantasy world good for you? Right? Martin? Right. So the behavioral component, for those of you who aren't, real quick, the behavioral component for those of you who aren't into coaching or therapy, the behavioral component is really what you do and a lot of your habits, right? And then the cognitive component is how you think and what you think about. And like Martin was talking about earlier, a lot of times when there's the big question that we want to ask, or even the bizarre question that we want to ask, we go over it in our head over and over and over again. And it's called rumination, right? We ruminate. And the word ruminate comes from the rumen, which is one of the cow's stomachs. And what happens is the cow eats grass and then it swallows it. It goes into the rumen where the rumen partially digests it and then it coughs it back up, throws it back up, and becomes cud that the cow keeps on chewing. And that's what we do with our thoughts. And typically, the thought becomes what we call a recursive loop. And what a recursive loop is a loop where the output of a thought becomes the new input. So really, if our thoughts are really kind of non-beneficial, if they're destructive, if they're negative, then that's the old output. And you probably have had this before where you think about asking for a promotion, you think about asking somebody out, you think about asking for something. And each time you think about it, it becomes tragically worse. And then pretty soon you're living like some Shakespearean play, like some Shakespearean melodrama, you know, in your mind about all the horrible things that happened when you asked. And again, thinking about it, because the brain cannot tell fact from fiction. It's just like when you dream, right? Your adrenaline will still go. You'll be sad. Your brain cannot tell what is fact and fiction. So when you think about these things, and when they continue to spiral down, your brain takes that on as rejection. So you feel the pain, because again, remember, the brain can't tell the difference between physical and emotional pain. So really, you're crushing yourself with these painful thoughts, and you haven't even asked for what it is you want. Go ahead, Martin. Okay. So, so understand that fear. There's a lot of components to how to overcome fear. Fear is a natural fear. We need fear, right? I mean, we don't. The fear is what, well, our ancestors anyway, kept us alive when we were in the woods or in the jungle or whatever else. The problem is now we've related a lot of things. Our minds are very relational. So we've related a lot of things as. So if you look at rejection as physical pain, and it causes that pain because of the meaning we create. If when I was young, if I got rejected, it meant that the other kids didn't like me, or my parents didn't love me, or whatever it may have meant. And so that became the overarching theme of rejection, right? So one of the things that I learned about fear in combat, though, is that fear can still be there, right? Nobody waits until they're fearless to go fight, or a firefighter doesn't wait until he's over his fear to run into the building. So typically what fear is, and overcoming fear, is a system of competing values, right? So if I told you, if we had a busy street, and I said, okay, hey Reed, it's good to see you, buddy. Anyway, if I said, hey, I'm gonna run across the street, you'd probably like, I'm an adrenaline junkie, you'd be like, Dave, get bent. I'm not running across that busy street. I said, okay, put $10 on the other side of that street. Now will you run across it? And most of you would probably know. If I said $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1,000,000, and for people who aren't motivated by money, what if there's a child on the other side of that street who's getting ready to step out into traffic? What if the man or woman of your dreams is on the other side of that street, needs you? And so what happens is the situation has stayed the same, right? And the fear is that there's anything less to fear about that situation, but there's a new value. There's a more important value, and in that threshold of $10, $100, $1,000, we find that where that value is there. So the cognitive way, the thoughtful way to overcome is to really focus on what your outcome is. Stay focused on that. Not focused on, I'm going to run across the street for $1,000,000, and if the whole time I'm thinking I'm going to get hit by a car, I'm going to get hit by a car. Because in order to think of what not to do, for instance, a tightrope, if I yell, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, that tightrope walker has to see falling in order to think about not falling. Does that make sense? So it's the old, pink elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant. In order to not think of a pink elephant, you have to conceptualize a pink elephant. So there are two things about fear, especially when we're doing this recreational rejection. All right. And again, Reed, you just showed up, so I'll kind of go over it real quickly. Recreational rejection, because we're talking about asking for the things you want, but really recreational rejection is even asking for things you don't want, and asking for ridiculous things. It's asking for stuff that's so out of the norm. Martin was telling a story earlier where we walked up to a strange woman in a movie theater and asked her for some of her popcorn. Right? And so there are two ways. There's the thinking way, the cognitive way to overcome the fear, which is really focusing on, what do I value here, right? The other way is if you think about, if you think about getting used to something, right? I'm afraid of getting rejected because it'll mean about me, and we catastrophize it. So if I go out and I intentionally get rejected every day, and yet at the end of that rejection, I'm okay, I can't help, my brain will start to completely rethink or reframe how it thinks about rejection is basically exposure therapy. And exposure therapy is one of the ways that traditional therapists deal with phobias. If you're now as NLP, practice, you have different ways, but if you're afraid of a snake, they put you in a room or they put you outside of a room where you can see the snake. And then when you get comfortable with that, because your system gets bored after a while, it can't hold that tension for an exceptional amount of time. So one of the things to remember when you're coming up with these ideas for this, for getting rejected, and if these aren't ideas, if it's not you asking for a raise or asking for promotion, but it's just an idea on the street, one of the things is when you're afraid, and just understand that it doesn't mean anything. It's just fear, and fear is only information. It's only information. Now, it's information with a caffeine kick because fear is a natural survival instinct that we have, and it's there to, charge our body when we need it. But when you're feeling afraid, it's irrelevant. And if you reframe rejection as a game, then it's not really fear, it's now excitement. And Pam, it have to be beneficial. No, it doesn't have to be beneficial. But and the thing is, in most people's interior world, read what I said earlier, is that everybody lives in a fantasy world, right? There's the reality out there, but then there's all the filters I have about what everything means, about the way the world is. That's my fantasy world, and it doesn't have to be beneficial, and for a lot of people, not beneficial. And so the work that we do as coaches is to help them make a more beneficial fantasy world. Really, is the way you're thinking about this serving you? And it's we change the way you're thinking about something. So, Martin. I'm The Yaya traveling pants. I have the Yaya traveling pants or whatever that is. Go ahead. Hey, yeah. Before we talk about that, I want to. We can talk about that a little bit more. I, I want to talk about the two types of pain that people really feel. Right? They feel the pain of encounter, and that is when somebody rejects you. But at a young age, we learn to avoid that pain, and then what most people fall into is the pain of avoidance. And with the pain of avoidance is it's really kind of the lackluster place where, I mean, a lot of people unfortunately are living their life. And when I say lackluster, I don't mean to put anybody down, but we'll only ask for things when we're fairly certain that we're going to get it, or when we can pass it off as a joke, or when something else happens. Like rejection becomes such a norm that a lot of times we don't even know what we're not asking for because it's outside the box, right? And so we live in this pain of avoidance state almost our lives, and that's in our relationships. Like when we can't ask for because when we can't ask our partner for what we want, it's in our business. It's when when we're employed, whatever it is. Um, one of the other, and this is one of the reasons Martin talking about this mastermind is it one way to learn is actually vicarious. What vicariously means through somebody else, right? So if you're watching somebody else do something, or if you're even following somebody else that's doing something, and you see them do it, and this has been proven even in phobias, a person who's phobic of a snake watching another person walk up to a snake and handle it, they will actually vicariously and spontaneously sometimes start to lose that phobia. So when you start to see other people asking for things, and we're not even talking about, remember, we're talking about getting what you want, but really this is about getting rejected. We really want you to go out there, whether it's with us or on your own or form a group of friends, and go out there and get rejected, because it's going to change your entire reality. You will see the world through completely different eyes. One, when your reality is tested and people don't turn you down as much as you think they are. And two, when you do get rejected, and after a while getting rejected is no big deal, and then you just start asking for what you want when you want it. Go ahead, Martin. I interrupted you. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. So you talk about the mastermind. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it in the chat box too. So so we're gonna meet once a week, but you're gonna have a week's worth of assignments in between. We're gonna be keeping score, and actually a rejection is a higher score than then an acceptance. So if you ask for something big and somebody gives you what you want, that's actually for the purposes of the game not as it is as getting rejected. If you're not going to do that, in mind, I want you though to take this opportunity to think about what we've talked about. Understand that fear is a system of competing values. So really start focusing on what is valuable to you. Excuse me, what's important to you. Understand that fear is not going to kill you. It's just information, right? So start creating some. There are a couple different ways. There are really 3 different scenarios where you can create this game. Okay. The first one is out of context requests. So by Martin going up and asking a woman for popcorn, that's really a normal request. He's just not a normal person to do it, right? If her friend or husband or her friend had asked her, it'd be no big deal. So it's completely out of context. The second type is a completely bizarre request, right? And you can sort of see for Frosting him asking for a tour of the Chipotle, asking a stranger on the street for a back row on the subway or whatever. Be careful with that stuff. But those are really, well, actually that's more out of context. But there are kind of the bizarre requests that are just weird, and nobody would really ask for that, right? And then there are the big requests, which are more of the real requests that you want. And we're not going to so much focus on those, and we may, but what we're trying to do is condition for rejection. So we're really going to put you in situations where we expect you to get rejected and we want you to get rejected. We're not going to, or who can you ask for something you really want? That's not the purpose of this game. So, but if there is something you really want, go out and ask for it. We can definitely do some work with somebody or a couple of you if you want to come on camera. Probably want to come on camera, yeah? Yep. All right. Well, if there are no questions, go ahead. Did you send to me? Hey, is Martin off or am I off or is everybody off? Oh, there you go. Okay, Martin. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any specific scenarios for your own life for anything like that? I mean, we can deal with something somebody's got going on right now. If you need some ideas. All right. Well, Martin's gone. So if nobody has anything, then we're just going to go ahead and end it. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. And if you're interested in the mastermind program, you join not reach Martin or I on Facebook or at our websites. I think his is martinlanzis.com and mine is lifeafterfear.com. You can email me at david@lifeafterfear. Martin, are you on? Oh, yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and we will talk to you later. Bye.